Welcome to Lesson 3 in Unit 24, Particle Picnic. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, what happens to a cake as it bakes? In this lesson, students investigate how matter changes. They conduct investigations and gather data as evidence of different changes to define physical and chemical changes. Students figure out that when matter changes, sometimes it is a physical change and sometimes it is a chemical change. Students make connections to the storyline by identifying different physical and chemical changes in baking. There are several opportunities for ELA and math cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 24 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 3 to 4 days to complete. To begin the engage portion of the lesson, you'll remind students of the anchoring phenomenon and their goal of using matter to create a meal for a community picnic. You'll show students the steps of baking a cake from the Lesson 1 Engage. You'll ask students what they notice about the cake before it goes in the oven and about the properties of the cake after baking. You'll ask students how the cake and its ingredients change throughout the baking process and what questions they have. You'll revisit the driving question board and add any new questions and highlight others connected to the learning goals of this lesson by calling attention to questions about how the cake changes as it bakes or differences in its properties. For the Explore portion, you'll set up the Changing Matter stations. Students will cycle through each station to investigate different ways matter can change. A detailed procedure for this investigation can be found in the Teacher Guide. Be sure to see the tutorial slides for more setup and procedure guidance. You'll have students record their observations in their Changing Matter Stations student journal page. In the Explain portion of the lesson, students will engage in a class discussion. You'll invite them to gather and analyze their observations around their matter changes investigation. You'll use the provided questions to guide the discussion around what happens to a cake as it bakes. The goal of this class discussion is to have students analyze data from their investigations to identify and compare physical and chemical changes of matter. You will use the discussion to create the Lesson 3 summary chart. From the discussion, students should understand that a cake goes through both physical changes, like mixing the batter, and chemical changes, like baking. They'll continue the discussion in the Elaborate portion. During the discussion, you'll have students read My Size, Physical and Chemical Changes reading. You'll then post and discuss the physical change and chemical change vocabulary cards. For the Elaborate portion, you'll play the Kitchen Chemical Changes video and complete the summary chart discussion. As you wrap up the summary chart discussion, students will update the class model and include it in the summary chart. You'll have students update their models on the Cake Baking Model Template student journal page. The model should now include labels for physical and chemical changes. For the Evaluate portion, you'll display the recipe for mashed potatoes and review it with students. You'll have them use the Mashed Potatoes student journal page to complete the Quick Check transfer task. To support student sense-making across the unit, orient them back to the driving question board. Ask, what did we learn about what happens to a cake as it bakes? And what additional questions do you have now? By the end of this lesson, students will have used evidence from investigations to identify and describe physical and chemical changes. In Lesson 4, students will use chemical properties to identify ingredients used in baking. For the optional Extend, you can demonstrate a change in matter by either combining Mentos with Diet Coke or showing a video clip of the reaction. For more information about this unit, visit mySciPartners.com.